Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for clicking on that link. Thank you for joining me on this podcast. Thank you for making out time. Today is radiation time. It's censuses. We are looking at radiation. We're looking at birth. We're looking at growth. We're looking at decay. And we are looking at death. Now the issue is, how do these apply to us? Today is the 13th of May 2020. We are in the epicenter of the current global pandemic called COVID-19. What do we have to offer? What we are offering here is we are taking us through something as fundamental and as basic as radiation, because in this particular community, in this tribe, we believe that an understanding of radiation is extremely key to understanding the full spectrum of our lives in the new normal. So please just hang in with me as we move on in this 4-part series. This is the third series. Hopefully we will conclude on this in the next podcast, or worst case scenario is going to be completed in the 5th podcast. Hang in there with me as we take a ride into the world of radiation. Right, so I'm going to start with a profound fact, and that fact is what you're looking at on the screen, that every living organism goes through 4 stages of life, and that is birth, growth, decay, and death. Inevitable 4 stages of life. Now, the amount and the type of frequency, the type of energies that we are surrounded with will determine the vibrations that we are exposed to, which in itself determines the length of the 2 stages between our birth and our death. And I'm referring to growth and decay. Now, I want you to think deeply on this. Post-COVID-19, it is extremely important that we have a good understanding of radiation, because it will determine the quality of lives that we live post-COVID-19. That is when all lockdowns are seemingly lifted and we go back into our so-called normal lives. It's no longer going to be normal, it's going to be a new normal. It's important to note that from the moment we were formed in our mother's wombs till the moment we pass on, essentially the moment we die, we are fueled by energy. We are enveloped by frequencies, and we live in a radiation-filled environment. Now, everything around us is energy. Everywhere you look, we have energy. As we introduced in our opening screen, using this particular shot, everything is energy. Nothing rests. Everything moves. Everything vibrates. These are facts of life. Energy is everywhere. Matter in itself is merely energy in different forms. Everything we can hold, see, touch, smell, feel is energy in different forms. Matter is merely energy in a state of vibration, attuned to different frequencies in the different daily activities that we carry out. At the most fundamental level, the universe and everything that comprises it is pure vibratory energy, literally everything. Our universe is energy manifesting itself in infinite ways. As such, the universe has no solidity. Everything everywhere around us is radiation. Radiation is the energy of the individual. I'm going to drop a word that is new in this particular tribe. Radiation is the energy of the individual photons, and that's the word, the photons, which determines the type of electromagnetic radiation that we are experiencing, whether that be light, X-ray, radio signals, microwaves, whatever form of radiation that we are exposed to, it is carried through photons. We are going to touch on photons soon. I just said to mention that at that point to state that radiation is everywhere as a product of the energy all around us. Radiation is everywhere. It's with us daily. It's with us with the products that we use, and these products emit radiation. So following up from our previous podcast, radiation part 1, I want to touch on radiation. Essentially, what is radiation? Radiation is nothing but a packet of energy seen differently in our daily domestic lives. It is produced differently from different subjects, from different things, even in the foods we eat, from our words, from the things that we've been socialized to know it comes from, which I've depicted on the left hand of the screen here. We have been told that radiation comes from nuclear plants, from explosions, from rocks. However, radiation actually is coming from our daily environment. Radiation is simply the energy that comes from a source that travels through some material or through a medium or through space, and it is around us daily. You can see that on the right hand screen. Just like radiation, electricity is everywhere. I mean, for instance, radiation in our homes appears in the form of electricity. Now, electricity in itself is made up of electrons and protons, while electrical energy is electromagnetism and is made up of photons. I'm not going to get us confused. This is an idea to explain to us and make us understand radiation in a better way. So I've dropped again the word photons. It pops up again. So what exactly is a photon? Now, for our simple understanding, we are going to project photons in 3 simple ways. And that is this. A photon is the carrier of the electromagnetic force. That is one way. A photon propagates at the speed of light. That is the second way. And a photon is the quantum form of all electromagnetic radiation. And those are the 3 simple ways. But put them all together, a photon is nothing but a packet of energy. The quantum form of all electromagnetic radiation that photons carry include light, radio waves, microwaves, X-rays, gamma rays, and much more. The most common to humans, the most common to us, is visible light, which we detect with the retinas in our eyes. Now, if our eyes were tuned to radio waves, if they could see, what's going to happen is that we'll be able to see FM and AM radio waves, which are the waves responsible for audio. We'll be able to see them travel through the air. Light, radio waves, and the aforementioned wave types are based upon the same electromagnetic wave, but each one occurs at different frequency ranges. So a photon is the basic unit of all light and waves, and a photon is always in motion. An example of a photon is what is created when the sun converts particles into both heat and light. What appeared to be coming out of an atom is actually a tiny energy packet called the photon. So for example, it is the energy of a photon that determines the frequency of an electromagnetic wave. So we are saying that high energy photons will also be high frequency electromagnetic energy. The two go hand in hand. I hope we get the correlation, as this and more will be essential in understanding how radiation works, with particular reference to the big subject matter, the new normal, which we in censuses have called the radiation virus. It is coming. It is coming, guys. So I haven't gone through photons. Now we can refer back to what radiation actually is. So radiation is nothing but a packet of energy, and a packet of energy is a photon, and it is in shorter or longer wavelengths. Looking at wavelengths, the complete electromagnetic spectrum is what we see here. The energy of the photon depends on its frequency, that is, how fast the electric field and the magnetic fields wiggle. So the higher the frequency, the more energy the photon has. So what or which types of radiation have the lowest energy? Radio waves, on the one hand, have the lowest energies, they have the longest wavelengths, and the lowest frequencies of any type of electromagnetic radiation. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to state in order of the highest to the lowest energy, okay? And that will take us through the sections of the electromagnetic spectrum. And these are from the highest to lowest: gamma rays, X-rays, ultraviolet radiation, visible light, infrared radiation, and radio waves. So our radio waves are the lowest energy force or source, if I could put it that simply. All electromagnetic waves are carried by photons, such as visible light. It is important to note that electromagnetic waves are photons, put in a simple way. An example of a photon, as indicated earlier on, is what is created when the sun converts particles into both heat and light. Simply put, while photons can be thought of as both particles and waves, now for the benefit of this tribe, for the benefit of censuses, and for the benefit of our objectives, we're going to treat and regard photons as particles that carry the electromagnetic force. Charged particles interact by emitting and absorbing photons. So carrying on from photons and our understanding that the properties of the packet of energy determine the type of radiation that we are exposed to, we will now need to look closer at the two types of radiation. Please hang in there as I take us through the next few screens. So there are two types of radiation that we are exposed to, which everybody knows. These are ionizing and non-ionizing. What I'm going to do, and that's what cuts across through the whole of this synthesis series, is that I'm going to explain this in a way in which my grandmother, and any 6-year-old can understand. Okay, so ionizing radiation has been classified to mean radiation that are detrimental and therefore not safe, whilst non-ionizing radiation means radiation that do not ionize and are therefore seen to be safe. As mentioned, radiation can occur in the form of waves and particles. Now, good examples of electromagnetic waves in both ionizing and non-ionizing radiation are microwaves, X-rays, and gamma rays. And good examples of forms of particles would be alpha and beta particles in radioactive radiation. Radiation passes through the air, and when it does that, it produces positive and negative ions. These are known as ionizing radiation. Ionizing radiation has a lot of energy in it. It has enough energy in it to knock off electrons from neutral molecules that it collides with. There is a split in the molecules, and as a result, electrons are released. On the other hand, we have the other type of radiation. This is the one that also goes through space. It goes through the air, however, does not have enough energy to split the molecules in order to ionize neutral atoms or molecules, and are therefore called non-ionizing radiation. So what I've done now is to successfully establish that EMFs, that is electromagnetic fields, are transmitted as waves and that they are energy dependent. In order to define radiation and how it applies to us on a daily basis, we need to capture the principle that there are three fundamental or basic types of electromagnetic wave energies, and these are low energy, intermediate energy, and high energy. Please hang in there with me as I take us through the next few slides. So, the three types of electromagnetic waves are low energy, intermediate energy, and high energy. Now, in its order and the year of discovery, I'm going to take us through the different waves. So, visible light was discovered by a man called Johann Ritter in 1800. In the same year, Sir William Herschel discovered infrared light. Ultraviolet rays were discovered in 1801 by the same Johann Ritter. He seems to be a very popular person. I previously mentioned that visible light was discovered by Johann Ritter in 1800. I'm going to take us through the other four waves or rays. Radio waves were discovered from 1885 to 1889 by Heinrich Hertz. X-rays were discovered in 1895 by Wilhelm Röntgen. Gamma rays were discovered in 1900 by Paul Villard, whilst in 1945 microwaves were discovered by Percy Spencer. Now, all these discoveries will subsequently put context to the changes in the way we interact with our world and how they are present and affect us in today's present-day health lives. Okay, it's a good place to mention that this understanding will also be important in our current day COVID-19 pandemic experiences. I say that in view of what I'm going to explain in subsequent podcasts, but I want to mention this. Let no one tell us otherwise, that radiation is not important in the face of today's pandemic. It's extremely, extremely important. Okay, so on the electromagnetic low energy spectrum, we can see electromagnetic waves with lower energy such as radio waves. We can see microwaves. And at the low spectrum, the low energy spectrum, the last radiation to consider are the infrared rays. The last two are aforementioned, that's the microwaves and infrared waves, are generally regarded as the good types of radiation because they both produce heat. Okay, please make a note and hold a good recollection of this as we further go into understanding what we call in this tribe the radiation virus. Now, these three complete the low energy spectrum band of radiation. So at low energy, and that is in the infrared regime, we know electromagnetic radiation as radio waves, microwaves, or heat radiation. I'm going to take us through the intermediate energy level. At intermediate energy levels, we have one radiation type. Intermediate energies are made up of visible light. Visible light is not inherently different from the other parts of the electromagnetic spectrum, with the one exception that the human eye can detect visible waves. The last of the lower energy spectrum is the ultraviolet rays. Ultraviolet rays have the third highest frequency on the low electromagnetic spectrum. Its frequency is lower than X-rays, but higher than infrared. Electromagnetic rays have a longer wavelength than X-rays, but shorter wavelength than infrared in itself. And all these are the non-ionizing radiation types. These are regarded as the non-dangerous radiation types. By the time we are through with this series on radiation, you will hold a more enlightened viewpoint. Let us now look at the higher energies. At the end of this 3 or 4 part series on radiation, we will have shown you how at lower energies, just like at the higher energies, we will have shown you how electromagnetic waves, even with lower energy, can also be ionizing. I mean, that is if the energy of the radiation is higher than the energy with which the electrons are bound in an atom or in a body or in a mass. Now, these higher energies range from X-rays, as you can see on the screen, to gamma rays, and these are what we call ionizing radiations. As previously mentioned, electromagnetic waves are classified according to their frequencies. Electromagnetic waves have a spectrum of frequencies beginning from radio waves to gamma ray energies. In order to get more insight into radiation, we will look at the properties of ionizing radiation types. I'm going to close this podcast on these descriptions, and then on the next podcast, we will focus more on non-ionizing radiation on its properties, and then by the fourth or the last podcast, we will have successfully covered and done due diligence on radiation and proceed to talking about what we term as the next pandemic, which could well be in itself an endemic. So please hang in there for the next screen. Thank you. So The list of these ionizing radiations are: number one, top in the list, alpha, which has the most and highest ionizing power. Second is beta. Third is gamma rays, which I've also coupled with X-rays. And the fourth is or are protons. And the last or the fifth would be your electrons, and finally your neutrons. Now, the four types of ionizing radioactive radiation that we'll be interested in are the ones I'm going to take us through right now. We are looking at alpha radiation. Now, what is alpha radiation? These are large charged particles that consist of 2 protons and 2 neutrons. These particles can travel only 1 to 2 inches in the air. The second one is your beta radiation or beta radiation, which is a small charged particle. Beta particles are much smaller than alpha particles and can travel up to 10 feet in the air. The third is gamma rays. So gamma rays or X-ray radiation is an electromagnetic wave of photon rather than a particle. Gamma rays are similar to X-rays, distinguished only by the fact that they are emitted from an excited nucleus. Originally, we were going to mention just 3 types, that's the alpha, beta, and gamma. However, due to the toxicity and the context of our radiation virus, which we have called post-COVID-19, we will be touching on neutrons. So neutrons are neither negative or positive. They are neutral, and that is, they have no electric charge. They are particles that can be emitted from the nuclei of various unstable radionuclides. Neutron radiation is a form of ionization radiation that presents as free neutrons. These are all the 4 ionizing radiation types we'll be looking at. So let's look at the makeup of these 4 radiation types. Now, alpha radiation consists of alpha particles, which are basically helium nuclei. That's what they are. An alpha particle contains 2 protons and 2 neutrons and is thus charged as a positive particle. It's positively charged. Okay. In addition, alpha radiation has the highest ionizing power due to the size or due to the larger size of the alpha particles. Beta radiation consists of beta particles. A beta particle is a high-speed electron and is thus negatively charged. Now, due to the smaller size of its electrons, beta radiation has a lower ionizing power than alpha radiation. We will spend a bit more time on gamma rays before we touch on the penetrative power and abilities of the 4 types of ionizing radioactive radiation that are of interest to us. Now, because X-rays and gamma rays have the same properties and also the same health effects, they are grouped together in this presentation, and we will most often be making mention of just gamma rays. I mean, by that we are referring to both gamma and X-rays, so please put that behind your mind. Gamma rays have no charge and are neither negative or positive, meaning they are neutral and they also have a high energy. Since they can pass through most materials easily, gamma rays have the highest penetrating and ionizing power amongst the 3 types of radioactive radiations. Now, let us look at the penetrative powers and properties of these 4 radiation types. When comparing the penetration powers of radioactive radiations, we can see that alpha radiation is the lowest since it can be shielded and stopped by a piece of paper, and they are also stopped by the outer layer of dead skin on people. Alpha particles will not penetrate the outer layer of the skin cells on our bodies and are not considered as an external hazard. However, if a material that emits alpha radiation is taken into the body, it can, because of the close proximity, cause damage to body tissues. For this reason, alpha radiation is considered an internal hazard. Beta radiation has a higher penetration power than alpha radiation, requiring a piece of aluminium 3 millimeters thick to stop it. Unlike alpha particles, beta particles can penetrate into the skin layers and are considered a skin and eye hazard. They can also be an internal hazard if the material that emits beta radiation is introduced into the body. Beta radiation can be shielded by plastic, aluminum, or several layers of clothing. These are the ways in which we can shield beta radiation. Now, in the event of a contamination, a firefighter's turnout gear or bunker gear will provide some shielding from beta radiation. In general, alpha and beta radiation are associated with contamination. As mentioned earlier, gamma rays are high energy electromagnetic waves. They are neutral and are thus not electrically charged. Gamma rays have the highest penetration power since they can only be stopped by lead with a minimum of 10 centimeter thickness. Gamma rays or gamma ray photons have the highest energy in the electromagnetic radiation spectrum, and their waves have the shortest wavelength. Now, because gamma rays and X-rays have no mass and have no charge, they have a high penetrating ability and able to travel several hundred feet in the air and penetrate through the body. They are considered a whole body hazard. In the event of contamination, and because of its penetrating ability, it will not be uncommon to see gamma radiation penetrating through an intact package without any physical contamination being present or even being seen. Very dense materials such as lead, concrete, or steel are used to shield gamma and X-ray radiations. Neutron radiation is a neutrally charged particle that can travel several hundred feet in the air. Because of its penetrating ability, it will not be uncommon to see neutron radiation penetrate through an intact package without any contamination being present. Neutrons are high-speed nuclear particles that are the only type of ionizing radiation that can actually make objects radioactive. Okay? Typical phenomena are nuclear fission or nuclear fusion, causing the release of free neutrons, which then react with the nuclei of other atoms, triggering further neutron radiation. What happens is that the neutron strikes the proton and knocks it out of its position in the atom. So neutron radiation damage occurs in a localized area due to the nature of the charged particle ionization caused by the proton and electron of the target hydrogen atom. A bit technical, but I just want to lay that foundation. As mentioned earlier on, Neutron particles have a high penetrating ability. They can penetrate through the body and therefore considered a whole body hazard. To shield neutron radiation, high energy or high hydrogen content materials such as water or plastic are used. This can shield neutron radiation. To illustrate the potency of a neutron, you can see that the alpha, beta, and gamma rays get stopped by lead. However, neutron rays goes through that particular lead. The neutron rays can only get stopped by concrete. We are coming to a close now, and the last illustrations we will look at will be relevant to our radiation virus pandemic. We will look at them and to see what really happens in our environment. That is the human field. The human field in itself is a fully charged energy field with both electricity and magnetics, and these are all within and around us. So it's quite important to understand the next few information I'm going to put across. Please do hang in there. Wait for the next few screens and we'll be done with this particular series on radiation. Hang in there. So, showing what really happens in our daily living, we show what happens in an electric field created by parallel positive and negative plates, okay, which you can see on the particular screen. Alpha radiation is deflected upwards towards the negative plate due to its positive charge. Beta radiation is deflected towards the positive plate due to its negative charge, while gamma rays, being neutral, are not deflected and move straight forward. And again, let's look at what happens in our daily living. And to do that, we need to look at what happens in a magnetic field, which is a field created by parallel south and north poles. As part of our optimal health living, the magnetic field will play a huge role. And as such, we'll be looking at what happens when we pass radiation through magnetic fields, starting with radiation passing through a horizontal magnetic field. We look at alpha radiation, which is deflected upwards due to its positive charge. Beta radiation is deflected downwards due to its negative charge, while gamma rays again are not deflected because they are neutral. So we are closing on this part 2 of the radiation series as we seek to touch on the next pandemic to hit our globe. And by that I'm referring to the radiation pandemic, which we've called radiation virus. As stated in our introduction, every living organism goes through 4 stages of life: birth, growth, decay, and death. I haven't gone through on narrating alpha, beta, gamma, and neutrons. The application is that the amount, the type, and the frequency of energy that passes through us will determine the vibration that we are exposed to, which in itself determines the length of the 2 stages between birth and death. And that is, I'm referring to our growth and our decay. Now think deeply on this. Our understanding of radiation will determine the quality of life we live. It will determine our growth and decay. And in the realm of health, it will also determine our death. So an understanding of radiation is extremely very critical and important. And that is why we in this tribe, we at Censuses, are taking so much time going through radiation. We close on stating a fact that is well embraced by all. This is a fact that we've been socialized in, and that fact is this: ionization causes both direct and indirect damage to our bodies. So the two main ways that we can have radiation damage DNA inside living cells are by radiation striking the DNA molecules directly, which in itself becomes ionized and damaging it. And the second way is radiation ionizing water molecules, producing free radicals that react with and damage DNA molecules. Remember that we are literally 70% water. That's the human body. So we'll be looking at that in our next podcast, which I will simply title Radiation Part 3. So please do subscribe, and you'll be notified on relevant podcasts in order to get a better view of what radiation actually does to us. I'm going to close on my biography, which is just a synopsis of my career capital that gives me the basis on narrating on radiation and other related subject matters. Please take a quick view on it. Hang in there is the next screen you're going to see, and thank you very much. So here's my bio. I'm not going to go through the whole of it, but as a consequence of my career capital, I speak from experience. And as a consequence of me biohacking my body, when I was going through 2 hospitalizations, trying to reverse, which I did, my chronic illnesses, I so speak as a survivor. So as part of my purpose, I'm creating this series of talks. And this series of talks are things that actually relate to everybody. So you can take time to go through my bio. This brings to a close our second, actually our third podcast on radiation. And there are 2 more podcasts to complete our series on introducing radiation. However, before you go, take a view on this. We are working on a dream. Join us as we work on this dream. We are building a huge library. We are building a community that will now and in the future continually produce and have resources to work with. We have resources that we can share, creating resources to make use of daily. We are patiently building. Enjoy your day, as remember the health frontliners who are sacrificing their lives in fighting this global pandemic called COVID-19. However, before you go, please do one thing: subscribe. And I'm going to talk more about that on the next screen. Please do subscribe to our channel so that you'll be notified when these podcasts are made available. You need to do just that one thing. You see on the top right corner, it says subscribe to GMASH Speaks. And the whole essence is for us to start a spark, starting the spark. Please click on the red subscribe button somewhere below your screen. Thank you so much for your time. Till we hook up again, please keep safe. Welcome to the new normal. God bless.